guys, let's start with a fairly broad question. What does the Challenge Cup mean to you?
Oh, the Challenge Cup for me just got so many memories associated with it, even going back to being a kid. And back then I was a Castleford Tigers supporter and used to go watch them home and away, and the Challenge Cup was a really big part of that. And I remember my first Challenge Cup memory was in 1986, going to watch Castleford play against Hull KR. And just remember, all the little bits that went with it. You know what I mean, and the journey down, the weekend, the weekend trip with the family and stuff like that. So many good memories of the Challenge Cup growing up, and things that sort of came back to me. Once I got to play there myself. Later on in my life.
And obviously 86, talk about that game a little bit. What can you remember from it specifically?
Well, I remember Jamie Sandy scoring right at the very end. A winger from Australia, I think he was an halfback, I think he was playing on the wing that day, and I remember him scoring right at the end. And obviously old Wembley there was a bit of distance at the ends between the two, between the stands and the pitch, and I remember him scoring and just running straight through. And obviously little things as well. I remember my auntie had knitted loads of like Castleford Tigers octopuses. I don't know why octopuses, but little things like that were sat in the back of the car on the way down. Like I said, and obviously even little things like the players turning up in the suits with the carnation on and all that sort of stuff, which is just little memories like that. And then obviously coming back and standing in front of the Civic Centre in Castleford and watching the team come back, and the civic reception and all the fans there in the masses. Just really good memories of the Challenge Cup growing up.
And I think you've touched on it, but it's more about the occasion, isn't it, as opposed to just the one game. It's such an occasion, isn't it?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think that's why traditionally it's a weekend away for rugby league fans, not necessarily for the teams that are going that weekend. And it's an occasion that I think it's steeped in history of famous victories and losses and moments. And all that sort of built up to be just a great spectacle.
And obviously as a player you went on to win it twice in back-to-back seasons with Hull FC. What did that mean as an achievement, both personally and for the club?
Yeah, obviously massive. That was on the back of losing it twice as well. Once at Leeds and then at Hull in 2013, which was a pretty grim year for myself anyway. But yeah, to then finally do it in 2016 was just unbelievable moment. There's so much riding on that game. Having, like I say, experienced losses, particularly in 2013. So disappointed. The motivation to then go and win it in 2016 was massive, and for myself really, because in 2015 I tore my Achilles, and I was contemplating retirement during that time, but it just shows you just how things can turn around, and playing in that game and winning the Challenge Cup in 2013 was one of the, if not the highlight of my career, and something that in retirement I actually worried that I'd never feel that happy ever again. Standing on that balcony and lifting the trophy was such a magical experience for myself and the team and the club. But in time you learn to sort of appreciate the fact that you did it and not resent the fact that you can't do it anymore, and understand that some people probably go through all their lives and not feel as happy as that. So very lucky and very privileged to have done that.
And obviously touched on 2016 though, clearly a massive journey for yourself, but it was a big moment for the club because they'd never won at Wembley. They'd won the cup a few times, 3 times I believe, but they'd never won at Wembley. So what did that mean to end that run for the club? Yeah,
well, it's funny because I remember when I was playing Australia in 2012, and I was speaking to obviously Hull at the time, and I remember Adam Pearson saying that how ambitious he was for the club, and one of the things was imagine yourself being the captain of the first team that won a Challenge Cup Final at Wembley. And at that time you sort of like, well, yeah, that's a long way off, but for that to then come to fruition, is unbelievable. And for the club itself to not have done, the club with a history like Hull's, and not to have won it, they've won the Challenge Cup obviously before, but I think they've won it in replays and stuff like that. So to eventually be part of that team that eventually gets that monkey off the back, it's pretty special, I think, and it would be a moment that'll go down in history long after we've gone. As that class of 2016 have gone, we'll always be that team that were the first team to win the Challenge Cup at Wembley. And
then you managed to do it back to back and winning 17 as well. How is it different going in as defending champions?
Yeah, I think there's pressure, but I think there was less pressure. I think in 2016, I was you know, I remember trying to, you know, when the final whistle went and you get that initial emotion of winning it, and then you try and savour every moment, like, you know, like going back to when I was a kid and seeing, you know, people walking up the stairs at Wembley. I remember taking every step and thinking, remember this, you know, remember, almost taking photographs in your mind, remember this, because this is unbelievable. To think you were that kid that was sat in the stands, stood in the stands, you know, nearly 20, 30 years ago, to now being that guy that's going to go up there and lift the trophy. I just found it a real unbelievable and surreal experience. But then obviously thinking that I maybe never would get a chance to do it again, to then think only 12 months later I was, you know, back up there doing it again. You know, again, I think, like I say, I think the pressure was off us in terms of, but I think the level of confidence in us was greater than probably what it was in 16. And, you know, it was another great game, you know, and really close game. You know, my heart was sank when, you know, they gave a forward pass just right at the end. I think Liam foul to Joe Burgess, and yeah, just a little bit moments like that. But yeah, again, relief, and again to back it up was a testament, I think, of where that squad was at that time.
Is there more of a target on your back when you're champions, or like when you're going into the quarterfinals, for example, the semi-finals? Do you go in thinking these are going to want to knock us off because we're the champions?
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, I think we just took it as our, you know, challenge. You know, playing against Leeds in the semi-final, you know, was a really big game for us. But I think we'd grown in confidence from winning it in 2016 to almost have that level of expectancy now, you know, of going there and getting the job done. And we put in a pretty convincing performance in the semi-final. And then we knew we had Wigan, who whenever you play Wigan, no matter when it is or where it is, it's always going to be a tough game, and it certainly was. But again, I think the confidence within that group was that we were going to go there and get the job done in 17. And
did the fact that you'd lost to Wigan in 13 play any difference in 17? Were you looking for revenge?
I don't know. I remember that 13, and this is the stark contrast of, you know, winning and losing at Wembley. You know, you think you've achieved something by getting to Wembley, but it's a dark place when you lose, and almost to the point where you think, well, we wish we hadn't have bothered, you know, getting here, because it's such a, you know, after the game, it's so difficult. Well, actually, in 2013, my daughter was born that night, so I was whisked off straight away, and it was easy to forget about. But it was really tough, and it probably did give us a little bit of motivation, actually, because, you know, like I said, for myself, you know, thinking, you know, that like I said, tore my Achilles in 15. You don't know when these opportunities are going to come again, so there probably was a little bit of added motivation. But again, the team was in a different place to what it was in 17 to what it was in 2013.
And you personally, the lead up to a Challenge Cup final, the hours before, the night before, what kind of player are you? Are you anxious and nervous, pacing the dressing room, or are you pretty confident, relaxed?
No, I'm anxious and nervous, yeah. It's funny because, you know, even in the sort of last few games for Hull a couple of years ago, a lot of the players, you know, I was getting nervous after before the game, and a lot of the young players were saying, "Why are you nervous? You've played nearly 500 games." And I said, "It doesn't matter. You know, this one means as much to me as what it did, you know, in the first one. You know what I mean? And that's just how it is." So, yeah, and I think being captain as well. As much as I enjoyed being captain, I always felt it was a burden on me to have to try and be that player, you know, every week, and particularly in a Challenge Cup final, you know, you've got people looking at you saying, "You're our leader, go out there and lead." And as much as it brought the best out of me, it mentally, you know, it is a challenge, but one that, you know, like I said, you revel in, and you go out there and give it your best, and you have those moments in games where you have to be that guy, you know, have to be that leader. But yeah, I'm definitely a nervous and anxious player, particularly when it comes to a game of that magnitude.
You talk about people being leaders there and having to step up in the big games. I think we might know the answer to this, but who are the other players on that pitch who stepped up on those days?
Yeah, well, I think people like Mark Minicello at the time, you know, he's a really big leader within our group and influenced, you know, the other players in the right ways with how he conducted himself off the field and his approach to the games. You know, people like Scott Taylor at the time, you know, really vocal and from Hull, and a big voice within the group. And obviously my vice captain at the time, Danny Houghton, you know, and his work ethic, you know, his passion for the club, and some of the moments, you know, in the game, you know, speak for themselves, just what it meant for them. So, you know, leadership you know, like I said, as much as it it was hard for me to, in terms of responsibility. I certainly had a lot of help around me that made things a little bit easier.
And in those back-to-back victories, Mark Sneyd was Lance Todd winner back-to-back for the first time, outright, I think. What was his performances like on the field that day?
Yeah, unbelievable. I remember being in the press conference actually afterwards, and Sneedy sort of downplaying his performances and putting praise on other people around him, and it was a great team performance. But like I said, Challenge Cups are famous for moments, and he came up with some really big moments with what he does well, and that's he kicks the ball really, really well. And he put the ball in the right places. Jamie Shaw scoring under the post. I think Mahe Fanua came down with one. Yeah, he came up with some really big plays, and that's what your halfback's there to do. And he was instrumental in both our victories in 16 and 17.
Yeah, we've touched a lot on victories there, Gaz, but we need to speak about losses, I think, as well, unfortunately. So 2005 was actually your first final for Leeds. What do you remember from that game? Yeah,
it's funny the 2005 one, because 2005 was my first year at Leeds. So I'd come from Wakefield, where, other than the 2004 season, I'd spent most of the time, battling relegation. So then in 2005, I ended up playing in the Challenge Cup Final and the Grand Final in 2005 and lost them both. But I remember, as disappointed as I was, I remember thinking, well, it's easy this, we'll be here again. I'll get another chance. And it wasn't until 2013 that I actually got another chance to play in a Challenge Cup final. So it just shows you how difficult a competition it is to win, and how important it is that you take your chances. But yeah, really tough, obviously, against Hull that day, and I get reminded of it quite regularly, because obviously it was a big win for the club back then, and still one of the biggest days for some of the players and the fans. So yeah, I get reminded about it a lot. But they had the moment of glory then, didn't they? So. But yeah, it was a disappointing day. But like I said, I just felt like there was going to be more chances to come. So I didn't probably take it as bad as what I did, in 2013 when we lost.
And obviously the finals moving away from Wembley this year for 1 year, that was actually at the Millennium Stadium. What do you remember from that ground and the atmosphere? I
remember it being suffocating. Yeah, it was obviously the first real big game that I'd played in. And I remember thinking it was like the air had been drawn out of me. It's obviously a real big stadium, the Millennium Stadium. It felt like it was just all around you, and trying to soak some of it up. But I actually remember that some little things. I remember the Challenge Cup. I spoke earlier about growing up and watching the players in the suits for the Carnation. For whatever reason, we chose not to wear suits. We wore track suits, and I think Tony Smith at the time was trying to almost downplay it a little bit in terms of not building the expectation up too much. But I actually missed not going through those traditions of doing all those little things that, like you say, you're growing up watching the Challenge Cup. So yeah, it was a bit disappointing in that regard. But like I said, it's. I did think there was going to be chances further down the line, but like I said, it's the few and far between the chances to win big games.
But the chance came again in 2013, and what do you remember from that? Unfortunately, another loss, but what do you remember from that game?
Yeah, it was again another funny one for me. 2013, I came back. I broke my foot in Australia in 2012 in my last season. Played the last few games. I'd already signed for Hull, and then did the pre-season, did the friendlies. First game against Leeds in the warm-up, broke my foot. My foot, broke again. So I just felt like a bit of a failure for 2013. I came back and played, and I remember. My effort's been, really high, trying my best, but just what the products I was putting out there wasn't good enough, for what I wanted to play. And that 2013 final probably epitomised that really, in terms of just how disappointing it was. It got nilled. It was chucked it down. It was sunny on the Friday. Chucked it down all day Saturday, and it was sunny again on the Sunday, and it just typified it. But like I say, my daughter was actually born. My wife was pregnant and she was due around that time, so it sort of was a bit of a opportunity to go away and reflect, I suppose, on the probably more important things in life, at that time. And Eva, my daughter, was born, in the early hours of that following morning, and there weren't too many. I think someone I asked, who fancies taking me back to back to Harrogate. It was at Harrogate Hospital, and there was, I think about 10 people put their hand up because no one wanted to be there anymore. They don't want to come home. So yeah, it was a bit of a funny one. Was 2013, and like I said, it's one that when you're actually there, you think you've achieved something by getting there. It's not until the moments that you've lost that you realise just how important it is to when you get to Wembley to go there and win.
But yeah, your first experience of Wembley in a Challenge Cup final, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit more traditional. Like I said, it was a bit more how you'd wanted it to be. But again, yeah, I think just myself, I was in a different place then, and we weren't. The team wasn't where it was like in 16, 17. We probably, got there, on merit. But I think we were always going to be up against it, playing against Wigan, who were a top side at that time. Yeah, and so like I said, if we'd have won it, I'd have had a whole different perspective on it. But I think just the fact that we lost it just puts a real downer on getting to Wembley at that stage.
So then you get there again in 16. Leading up to 16, is there a point where you're thinking to yourself, I'm a bit nervous. I've already lost 2. Am I going to win this one? Is this my time?
Like I say, I think we were just in a better place as a team and as a club at that point. We probably built up to that stage where we were winning games and we felt confident. We felt like one of the top teams in the competition then. And I remember all the family sort of. There was just a better feel about 2016. I think how the club sort of organised it. Got all the the tickets and all that out of the way nice and early, so the boys could just concentrate on it. Got measured up for the suits, had the little carnation in the pocket, all the little details that just go into making a Challenge Cup final was there in 2016. And like I said, we were playing good rugby, coming against a good Warrington team, but we felt really confident going into it. So yeah, just a different feel, I think. Probably a little bit of motivation from 2013, knowing how bad losing is there and knowing how desperate we are to be that team that won the Challenge Cup at Wembley, or the first Hull FC to win a Challenge Cup at Wembley. I think that brought the best out of us in 2016.
Now the moment everyone remembers from 2016 is Ben Curry slices through the line a little bit. Danny Houghton manages to stop him on the line somehow. What's going through your mind when you see Ben Curry take that ball? Yeah,
I think relief on. At the time, I didn't realise just how good a tackle it was. I just saw Danny Houghton come up with a great tackle on the try line, and it wasn't until probably the next day that I saw it and realised that's just what a great tackle it was. And I still don't know how Ben Curry didn't slide over that line. But the relief more was because for a couple of plays before that, I'd actually missed a tackle on Joe Westerman. Warrington were on top, and they were coming down. They'd done a few offloads, and I remember thinking, one of those moments, captain, I need to do something. And I think I shot out the line on Joe Westerman, and he stepped me and went through and passed it to someone else. So the reason they were on our try line was because I missed the tackle. So the fact that he came up with that big play at that time was massive relief, I think. And I think at that point, that again, we talk about moments. Moments in games are so critical, and if you can be on the right side of those moments more often than not, you have a chance of winning the game. And that was just a huge Challenge Cup moment, not only in that game, but I think throughout the whole standing in the history of Challenge Cups.
And you talk one of the great Challenge Cup final moments there, but a moment for you get to walk up the stairs and lift that trophy. What's going through your head as you're walking up the stairs?
It was surreal really, because like I say, you start to. I remember sort of trying to, like say, take mental pictures in my mind, knowing that this is an unbelievable experience that not many people get a chance to do, and playing in one in 2005 to then not wait until 2030 to play in another one, to then wait until 2016 to actually win one. Just trying to take it all in, and knowing that you're trying to remember things and see people and all the traditions of the people handing you the scarves and the woolly hats and all that sort of stuff. And I remember getting to sort of the concourse bit and seeing Richard Whiting, who'd left the club, and he was there and he was giving everybody a big hug. So then stepping out on the balcony and I remember kept almost having to pinch myself that it was going to be me. That it's going to be me that's going to go lift that trophy. That the team had done all the work, but I was the lucky one that actually went up there and got to lift the trophy. And it was again, just a real surreal moment. And it's like you're you know, people talk about, you know, when they pass away, that the life flashes before their eyes. But it was like when I was lifting the trophy, it was like all my Challenge Cup memories of being a kid was all like flashing before my eyes. You know, past players, all the players that I'd looked up to, and in that moment, you know, lifting the trophy, like I said, it's just unbelievable amount of joy. But one of my favourite pictures is, because obviously I'm stood there and all the team are lined up at the side of me, I don't see what everyone else does. And since then I've got a photo at home of that moment when I'm lifting the trophy, but I also see the rest of the team and their reaction, you know, of what it is and what it means to them as well, which just makes it really special that group of players who were really, really close at the time, just, you know, sharing that moment of being that team that, you know, that won the Challenge Cup at Wembley.
And then you went on and did it again in 17. Is that moment just as special the year after?
It is, yeah. I mean, like I said, you know, backing it up, you know, was a big thing for us. You know, and we were in a good place as a team. If you pressed me, I'd say 2016 just had a special feel about it. You know, been for the first time doing it, and I think the challenge of backing it up made it special in 17. And again, you know, getting the chance to do it again was really, really special. You know, and even in looking back now, you know, just how it wasn't until a few weeks later that I actually did the promo, I think, at Beverley Racecourse, and the Challenge Cup trophy was there. And it was the first time I'd seen it while it had been engraved, you know, with our team on it. I think this was after 16, and obviously as you know, Hull FC 2016 Challenge Cup winners, and it has G. Ellis, you know, as the captain, and I remember thinking to myself, that's amazing, you know, to think that my name is going to be on that trophy forever. You know, like, you know, you look back at all the people that have, you know, been there and lifted the trophy, and their names are on it. I just find it really, like, unbelievable to think that I'm, you know, little old Gareth Ellis from Castleford is just, you know, going to be on that trophy for as long as it's around. You know, even now talking about it makes me quite emotional, you know, thinking about it. It's an amazing experience. Yeah,
imagine it's pretty surreal. So just two final questions. Obviously you spent time in Australia. They don't have a competition like the Challenge Cup. Do you think they envy it a little bit, or did they ever ask you about what the Challenge Cup's like?
I think that I don't know if they envy it, but I think it's particularly a lot of them players of sort of my generation remember the Wigan team of, you know, of the sort of 90s that were so dominant throughout the Challenge Cup. So that seems to be the one thing that the point of difference with the two competitions that they speak about a lot is the cup competition and the magic of the cup. And I think it was actually shown. Those games were shown in Australia at the time. So you know, whether it's players or supporters, they certainly ask you a lot of questions about the Challenge Cup. And again, it's you know, it's a bit of a slogan, isn't it? The magic of the cup. But there is something special about the Challenge Cup that probably transcends on both sides of the world.
And then just the final's going to be at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this year, moving away from Wembley for 1 year. Unfortunately, Hull aren't going to be there this season, but it must be a good opportunity for Rugby fans to experience somewhere new.
I think it looks amazing, you know, looking at the stadium itself. You know, it's a brand spanking new stadium. It looks unbelievable, you know, and you talk about, you know, the game gives you a lot of, you know, experiences and opportunities, and I think, you know, whoever the two teams are, you know, that get there this year, they're going to have a special experience, you know, of playing at Tottenham Stadium. It'll be the Challenge Cup, but just different, I think, and that's what's really important. You know, there'll still all be those traditions there. It'll just be at a different venue, but one that I think teams should get and fans should get excited about.